So our first review of the day is going to be for Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. In this film, based off of the tabletop game, here is directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein, the same team behind Game Night, which I actually really like. Game Night, I thought that was kind of an underrated comedy. Didn't get a lot of attention, but I thought it was very funny. That was with Jason Bateman, and that was with Rachel Bing Adams. A good comedy there, and they kind of infuse some of that style here into this, because a lot of comparisons you're going to be probably hearing with this movie is probably Guardians of the Galaxy. You're probably going to get that. You have like the team of kind of misfits kind of coming together, working together, trying to, on this adventure. So you're going to probably get a lot of that comparison. Of course, this is a sword and sorcery type movie, so you're going to get maybe a little bit of comparisons also to maybe something like other fantasy stuff like, Lord of the Rings or, any other various fantasy thing that you can think of. It's probably going to get some comparison there. But it has a good humor bent to it. And usually like fantasy humor type stuff, I've never really seen it done all that super well. I remember that. Does anybody remember that movie, Your Highness? Does anybody remember that?
I do.
Yeah. I remember Natalie Portman being hot in it, and that's about all that.
That was pretty terrible. So, with something like this, I think this might go on my list of one of the biggest surprises of the year. When this year is all said and done, because I had a really good time watching this. It's just a really good, fun movie. You have a good team of characters here. They are somewhat basic in some of their, kind of attributes and kind of their personality traits. You have Chris Pine, who's the, leading man type guy. He's the roguish type hero. You got Michelle Rodriguez is playing Michelle Rodriguez, what she's played is, most of her career. She's the tough chick. She's the strong, tough chick. You got Justin Smith in there. People might know he was in the Jurassic World movies. He was also in The Get Down, which was on Netflix. I think that's where he was also first blew up in that. Here he plays a really terrible sorcerer by the name of Simon. You have Hugh Grant in this movie, who's this movie's antagonist, who plays, he's a character named Forge, who Hugh Grant's having a nice little career resurgence. I've been loving a lot of the stuff that Hugh Grant's been doing over the past few years. Like when he was in Paddington, he did really great in that.
Fair, Hugh.
Yeah, so he's had
Saved his ass.
Yeah, great little career resurgence. You also had Sophia Lillis, who's the name, plays Doric. She plays a shapeshifter. People might know she was the child version of Jessica Chastain's character in It. You have Regé-Jean Page, Gene Page, who's in this. Who he's playing? Was his character's name again? Do you remember, Dusk?
Which do you mean the Paladin?
Yes, the Paladin.
Which characters? Right?
Yeah, he was the Paladin.
Yeah, the Paladin is Zenk Yandar, I think.
Yeah. People might know he's from Bridgerton.
Yeah.
That's like the big show that he was on. He was on Bridgerton. I've never seen it myself, but I know he's blew up on that show. A lot of women thirst after him. And when he comes in, it's like a battle of who can be more handsome, Chris Pine or this guy. It's like a battle on screen basically. Who can be the really really the most beautiful guy on camera. So you have that kind of set up here, but his character kind of comes in way later in the movie. His character, and it's a fun appearance. What they do with him, because it's like. What they do with his character is like he's like a Drax type person who doesn't understand humor or sarcasm or everything. He takes everything very literally. You kind of see that here, which has some good comedic moments, which I liked a lot. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna get kind of a lot of your basic fantasy element things. It's like they have to get this relic in order to. Bring a person back to life. There's a group of evil wizards they have to stop. There's a dickish rich guy in here, which is Hugh Grant. They have to save a girl in a castle who's, the daughter of Chris Pine, who, by the way, that girl is, anytime there's a interracial couple in the movie, she's the byproduct of that. I just saw her in 65, where Adam Driver was married to a black woman and they had a daughter.
Oh, yeah.
She was the daughter in that. I was like, damn, if you need any role where you get a biracial daughter, she must have a really good agent. It's like, listen, we need a biracial daughter stat. We need a biracial child right now. They give her a call. She comes down. She must have a great agent. So good for her.
You know what? That's awesome though, because everyone needs. There are certain actors that just fill that role. Like, when you need someone who's brown and insane, you call Jason Mantzoukas. You just go like, "Go ahead, man, do your thing." Like, so hey, if that's her niche, more power to her.
Yeah, good for her. And that girl, the actress name is Chloe Coleman. She plays Kira in it, and she's the daughter of Chris Pine's character who's stuck in the castle there. And they have to go and save her. So yeah, I mean, and this movie has some really good action sequences in it as well. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to pass it off to Dusk, get his thoughts on it. Dusk, what was some of your thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, man?
It probably is one of the few movies I've seen so far this year. The year hasn't been that long, but it's one of the few ones that I came in. I recently watched the original Dungeons and Dragons from 2000, just for why not? And beer in hand, watched that, and that was just a horrendous mess. Context given, made by the same studio that a few months later, Lord of the Rings would come out of. So you had to, and it's also bittersweet as the guy who made the movie bought the rights to Dungeons and Dragons and wanted to make a movie off of it, but never wanted to direct it. He was always looking for someone else to direct, and the studio would only make it if he was the one to direct it, and he had no appearance. So that one's kind of a tragedy, but it still doesn't. Jeremy Irons is great. He cams it up. So I went into this one just going in, okay, at bare minimum, it just has to beat that. It just has to beat that, which, you never know. But I was actually kind of surprised that I actually kind of like this movie. It has its flaws, and some of the humor doesn't always land, and some of the characterizations isn't great for certain moments, and it feels like a script that was kind of written in the mid-2010s that finally got fixed up enough that, like, why don't we dust this off? Why don't we try this out? Let me change some things, and we'll put it in there. But I thought overall everyone did fairly well. I liked Chris Pine's character. Even if they play him somewhat as being sometimes a failure, he does come off as being fairly charming and smart. Samuel, the wizard, he comes off as like a plucky character who's just trying to figure out being a sorcerer and his magic and doesn't believe in himself. What's the druid? Doric's the druid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she right. She's really good at wild shaping, but that's about it. She has like one really good talent. And Michelle Rodriguez plays Michelle Rodriguez, but I'm actually delightfully surprised to see that she actually handled herself with a bit more humor and was given a bit more nuance, and her communicate the way she had this very bluntness to her worked really well with Chris Pine's kind of bit more inflections and wordplay. And there were moments where I even chuckled at their banter back and forth on occasion, where she would just say things that, and I just get a chuckle out of it, just how quickly it was. The action scenes are actually pretty decently well choreographed. The magic is at least explained, and mostly for people, I think. For like, Josh, you've never played Dungeons and Dragons, right?
No, I've only played it once.
You have no idea.
Once in my life.
Okay, so. That's fair. I can then say for people who never played Dungeons and Dragons, they're not going to get lost. This story is pretty self-contained. You get the gist. For people who have played D&D or who even know what the Forgotten Realms setting is, which this movie takes place in that realm of D&D, they mention Icewind and Dale. They mention Baldur's Gate. They mention Waterdeep. They mention a powerful lich at one point. They mention Thay, which is basically became like a necromantic city at one point. So there's a lot of references that feel just fairly normal. People just know what they are. And this feels like just a party of level 5s going on a D&D adventure that just someone decided to put a budget behind. And yeah, again, it has its flaws, but I think it did fairly well. I liked the characters well enough. I liked everyone's portrayal of them. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, there's really not that much on the part of the script there as character wise, as far as the depth goes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people is pretty. I mean, you get these characters pretty instantly. You don't need a huge a lot of things with them. Like I said, I
Right.
mean, a lot of these characters, simple backstories, like the shapeshifter character. Her whole thing is, she wants to, she joins the team is because I have to do it for my village, right? She's got that simple kind of backstory. I want to do it for my people and my village or whatever, and my people have been oppressed by Hugh Grant's character, so I'm going to fight for them. Justice Smith, who, usually in movies he plays like a very whiny kind of character. He kind of plays that again here with the Simon, who's the sorcerer, and all he needs to do is believe in himself. And I can only, listen, if you see enough movies, what's going to happen? The dude's going to end up believing in himself, right? Like you get it.
Right.
I mean, you get the kind of setup with a lot of these characters.
They at least play fun with that, though, at that point where it starts getting really tiresome, and Chris Pine's just like, just believe, just pretend, like, just shut up for a second and just pretend that that's what you have to do, and just do it. So it's not like they let him whine as much as they should. He does a little more whining than I would have liked, but he does have the okay, nut up or shut up moments,
Yeah.
which is appreciated.
And the action sequences, I was, wasn't really expecting that much from this, and they were pretty good. Like, there's a scene you seen a little bit in the trailer, the Paladin when he's fighting. It's well shot. That looks really good. There's a sequence with the shapeshifter where it's like a tracking shot where she changes into a bunch of different animals running away from the villains of the film. That looks really good. I thought that was really cool. Is the effects that really amazing or terrific? Not really, not particularly, but they do decent enough job for it. And the humor, to me, I mean, it works really well. I mean, Hugh Grant, mentioned him. He's really funny. He's got a lot of really good moments in here. So does Chris Pine. And some of the action sequences, the way they're able to blend a lot of the humor and comedy is very good. They do some good representation here. You see your first ever fat dragon. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? Shout out to that. When have you ever seen a fat dragon before? They do exist, so that's pretty awesome.
They do. He's mentioned in D&D 2nd edition and 3rd.
Yeah. So, and for somebody like me who I've never played D&D before, I'm not interested in D&D. This was a good kind of adventure for me. I can only imagine if you are somebody who is a hardcore player in it. I tried to get somebody on that was very much of a hardcore player D&D, but wasn't able to talk about like all the different Easter eggs. Like Dustman, there's probably tons of Easter eggs and references here that I didn't catch.
Yeah,
not being a player.
I can go over like a brief few amount that I do know that I just saw happenstancely if you want.
Sure, if you want to. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So the jail they're in takes place in Icewind and Dale. Icewind and Dale is a campaign setting in the Forgotten Realms area. It's usually frozen tundra and all that. You saw it on the map when they were like showing the title credits. I'm like, oh, Icewind and Dale makes sense. There is a game series, 2 game series made Icewind and Dale in that setting that are pretty well liked. I think they were made by the same people who did the Baldur's Gate setting, or at least similar. They were a CRPG. So if you ever want to experience that, there's 2 games that takes place in that setting. He's the king. At one point, they meet the king of Neverwinter, who is a whole other setting. Neverwinter Nights is a whole 2 game series as well, made by the same people who made Icewind and Dale. They made Neverwinter campaigns. That's its own setting. So that's a place in Forgotten Realms. I think at one point they wash up on the shore. I'm gonna guess, but I'm pretty sure that was a homage to the Swords of the Coast and the Sword Coast. I believe that's another setting. Usually the pirate or like water themed campaigns take place on the Sword Coasts. The dragon, I think I had to look this up, but it's accurate to this style. It's Thaddeus, whatever. I think it's called Thaddeus. It's a fat dragon, and it's OG looks like the fat dragon, so they took it from what he looked like. I think the Paladin also, if I recall, based on his symbol, also represents the Thay old symbol or something. I also think the reason why he's so obscure is he probably took an oath, a very specific oath. I don't know what, but it was probably an oath of taking care of people. So he doesn't really have time for a lot of distractions. Paladins are very like kind of rot up their butt kind of characters. They kind of just like, this is good and this is not. And Harper's, I didn't even know this. They're a faction that Chris Pine initially belonged to. They're a huge thing, and I had to even look that up. I'm like, I wonder if they made this up too. And I looked on a wiki that's like 180 pages. I'm like, I don't have time to read 180 pages on the lore of the Harpers. I'm okay, they exist. So I can imagine there's even more. There's even a few spells that I noticed. I'm like, they should have been able to catch that much, but I don't care. There's like a couple times where Jork wild shapes, and I'm like, based on her level, she probably wouldn't have gotten more than like 3 shape change within like an hour, or within like a whole day. You can't do it that frequently, but it's a movie. I don't care. I'm not going to be that flippant on it. As long as they give her a limit of some kind, I don't really care. So there's probably more. They also mentioned Baldur's Gate. They mentioned Waterfell as well. 2 rich guys. Those are also campaign settings. Famously, BioWare created the Baldur's Gate first 2 games, critically praised, that take place in that setting. I don't remember if Waterfell ever got a setting in a game. They probably has. And there's just other Easter eggs. One of the Lich mentioned is Sizathar Tom, I think. I looked that up. Yeah, he's a big bad Lich. So he has his own campaign setting of like trying to take on him and his undead legion. So yeah, I'm sure there's way more. This is just me as a like casual D&D player for like a long time. I don't even know that many settings. I just know a few. But yeah, I mean, they did their homework. I'll give them that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, if you are a big D&D player, there's a lot for you there. Even if you're someone who has never played it like me, I think there's also it's just a fun, nice adventure fantasy film that you can watch, and check out. So yeah, you know, if I had to give, you know, my rating for this, I would say it's a good tune in for it. I think you'll have a good time with it. I think the humor is really good. I think the action is good. Chris Pine is a great leading man. I mean, he's got all the qualities of a great leading man. He's, you know, handsome. He's charming. He can do the dramatic moments when he can do the dramatic moments. He can do the comedic bits very well. He can, you know, he's the guy with the plan. You know, and then it's funny, they do even do a joke about that. It's like, you know, if, okay, you're a guy who comes up with the plan, what else do you do? What else skill do you kind of bring to the team? It's like, I shapeshift, you know, she can kick ass. He's got the magic. Okay, what you got, you know? But hey, everybody needs a planner, you know? Everybody needs that. So.
They need a planner. He's also very quick-witted, and he's good for a distraction. You always need somebody who's good at subterfuge in your group. You can't always go like balls in every time.
Yeah.
Actually, this is one other thing I looked up. Apparently, because D&D are nerds, because of course they are, they actually posted character sheets. I didn't even know this. Apparently they're like posted legitimate character sheets based on the characters, so you can see what spells and stuff they have. It's actually hilarious. I didn't even think they would do that, but I'm like, I was just researching after I watched the movie. Like, I wonder if they actually did that. Apparently, Chris Pine knows a couple of charm spells because I was the entire movie. I was like, he's a bard. He should probably be using some spells, but he never does. And I'm like, oh, he has these spells. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, you'd be only useful in like certain areas. They're good spells, some of them, but I would have chosen a few others. But that's just me.
Yeah. So what's your rating?
I went into this movie initially going, okay, let's see how bad this is. I have a really low bar. It's gonna at least do somewhat better than that. And I came out of it going, that wasn't bad. I expected this to be very different from what I got. Chris Pine was a good emotional footnote. I don't is like there are some characterizations in certain of the characters I would have liked changed or tweaked, and I do think some of the jokes could have been changed, and we could have had a little more serious moments here and there, along with some of the other comedy moments because they didn't always land. But for the most part, the effects were solid for what they were. These action scenarios were I could see what was happening, and they let the camera show movement. Everybody had like a nice, at least character loop or an arc, or at least something. Even if it's not a complete one, at least it had something. Characters started from point A, now they're in point B. And I think for people who haven't played D&D, this would be a fun little like adventure romp movie. Will I remember it in 10 years? Probably not. But it's fun for an afternoon, and I think between friends or going to see it to a matinee movie or a low full price movie, you'd have a good time. So I'm going to go with, because of that and because it surprised me, I think I'm going to go with a low tune in. because of that. I think if you saw it in theaters, I don't think you would be that disgruntled about it. I think you'd be like, well, that was nice. That was not bad. It's definitely like a Sunday afternoon movie. You go in and you have a good time. I think you do well for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Two tune ins. I gave it one strong one, and Dusk gave it a low tune in.